Have you ever wondered about the immense challenges faced by post-colonial African nations in their pursuit of stability and growth? Imagine, if you will, a continent rich in natural resources and cultural diversity, yet burdened by the harsh legacy of colonial rule. This is the story of Africa in the aftermath of European colonialism. As the colonial powers retreated, they left behind a patchwork of nations, each grappling with the task of nation-building amidst a complex web of ethnic, religious, and regional divides. The road to stability and growth was not an easy one. These newly independent states faced a myriad of challenges, from political instability and economic underdevelopment to internal conflicts and external pressures. They had to navigate the treacherous waters of governance, economic development, and social cohesion, all while carrying the weight of their colonial past. One such nation grappling with these challenges was Chad, under the leadership of its first president, François Tombalbaye. Born on a day in June 1918, François Tombalbaye's life was set to be eventful. Nestled in the heart of Africa, in a region known as Moyen Chari, the young Tombalbaye found himself in a world shaped by the machinations of French colonial rule. His homeland, Chad, was not yet a nation but a small part of a larger entity known as French Equatorial Africa. From these humble beginnings, Tombalbaye's interest in politics ignited. The colonial era was a time of tension and change, a time when the seeds of independence began to sprout across Africa. It was during this transformative period that Tombalbaye emerged as a key figure, his voice echoing amongst the clamor for freedom and self-determination. His involvement in politics was not merely a career choice, but a calling to lead, to fight, to strive for an independent Chad. Tombalbaye's political beginnings were only a precursor to his significant role in Chad's fight for independence. With independence in 1960, Chad saw Tombalbaye rise to its highest office. After years of political activism and fighting for Chadian independence, François Tombalbaye was finally rewarded with the presidency. His journey to power was not a simple one, but rather a testament to his relentless pursuit of independence and sovereignty for his people. As the first president of Chad, Tombalbaye had a vision for his nation, a vision of unity, stability, and progress. He believed in the potential of a centralized government, a system where the power was concentrated in the hands of a few, with him at the helm. This was not a novel concept, but rather one that had seen success in many Western countries. Tombalbaye was convinced that this was the key to Chad's progress. With a singular focus, he set on a mission to centralize power. He believed that a unified government, devoid of regional biases, would be better equipped to address the needs of the nation. He sought to diminish the influence of regional chieftains and tribal leaders, viewing them as potential threats to the stability of his government. But this approach wasn't without its challenges. Chad was a nation of diverse ethnicities and cultures, each with its own unique identity and history. These vibrant threads of diversity were woven into the very fabric of Chadian society. Tombalbaye's attempts to centralize power were seen as a threat to this diversity, a threat to the very identity of these ethnic and regional groups. His vision of unity was beginning to look more like a vision of homogenization. The intricacies of Chad's diverse cultures were being overshadowed by a single uniform narrative, one that was predominantly shaped by Tombalbaye and his government. In his quest for unity and stability, Tombalbaye was walking a tightrope. On one hand, he had the noble intent of nation-building, of creating a unified, prosperous Chad. On the other, he was disrupting the delicate balance of power, threatening to fracture the very nation he sought to unite. Yet Tombalbaye's efforts to consolidate power would soon cause friction within Chad's diverse ethnic and regional groups. As Tombalbaye's rule advanced, so did the challenges he faced. A man who once stood as a beacon of hope for an independent Chad was now at the center of a bubbling cauldron of discontent. The president's grip on power tightened, but so too did the knot of opposition that grew against him. Tombalbaye's presidency was marred by a growing sense of unease and dissatisfaction. From the dusty expanses of the Saharan north to the lush savannas of the south, murmurs of rebellion echoed across the nation. Armed factions, bolstered by a sense of marginalization and a longing for change, rose in defiance of the central government. These weren't mere skirmishes or isolated incidents, but a full-fledged rebellion, a clear indication of the rising discontent that Tombalbaye's rule had sown. But the opposition wasn't limited to the battlefield. The political landscape too was rife with dissent. Tombalbaye's policies, criticized for their favoritism towards his own ethnic group, the Sara, stoked the fires of resentment. His centralized approach to governance, which sought to consolidate power in the capital, left many regional and ethnic groups feeling sidelined, their voices drowned out by the clamor of the ruling elite. His perceived lack of inclusivity further deepened the chasm between the government and the governed. The people of Chad, with their diverse ethnicities and cultures, felt a growing disconnect with the Tombalbaye administration. Their concerns were met with indifference, their protests with silence. The promise of an independent Chad, a nation for all its people, seemed to be slipping away. Tombalbaye's attempts to quell the opposition only served to fan its flames. His crackdown on dissent, characterized by restrictions on political freedoms, only reinforced the perception of his rule as increasingly authoritarian. Yet the president remained undeterred, steadfast in his belief that his approach was necessary for the stability and unity of the nation. The seeds of discontent planted by Tombalbaye's rule were now sprouting, growing into a formidable opposition. The stage was set for a struggle that would shape the future of Chad, a struggle born out of the aspirations of a people yearning for a voice in their own nation. The seeds of discontent planted by Tombalbaye's rule would soon grow into a formidable opposition. The tightening grip of Tombalbaye's authoritarian rule would ultimately lead to his downfall. As the years wore on, the president's hold on power became an iron fist. Political freedoms were no longer a given, but a luxury that few could afford. Tombalbaye's administration, once heralded as the harbinger of a free Chad, was turning into a gilded cage. The president's policies began to reflect a more autocratic agenda. Dissent was not tolerated, and those who dared to voice their opposition were met with severe consequences. The government's restrictions were not limited to the public sphere. They extended into the private lives of the citizens, leaving them feeling suffocated and desperate for change. Tombalbaye's favoritism towards his own ethnic group, the Sara, only added fuel to the fire. The perceived lack of inclusivity caused a surge of discontent among the various ethnic and regional groups within Chad. The nation, once united in its fight for independence, was now divided and on the brink of turmoil. And then, the inevitable happened. In the early morning hours of April 13, 1975, a military coup led by General Felix Maloum, a former ally of Tombalbaye, seized control of the capital, N'Djamena. The coup was swift and decisive. By the time the sun rose, Tombalbaye was no more. The news of Tombalbaye's assassination sent shockwaves across Chad and beyond. The man who once stood as the symbol of Chad's independence was now a stark reminder of the perils of unchecked power. The coup marked the end of Tombalbaye's 15-year rule, a period that had seen Chad transform from a hopeful nation to a land riddled with discord. However, the coup was not just the end of Tombalbaye's rule. It was also the beginning of a new chapter in Chad's history, one filled with uncertainty, but also the promise of change. As the dust settled, the people of Chad were left to pick up the pieces and navigate their way towards a future they could only hope would be brighter. Tombalbaye's fall from power marked the end of an era filled with mixed outcomes for Chad. The legacy of François Tombalbaye is far from simple. This statement rings true as we delve into the multifaceted impact of his leadership. As the first president of Chad, Tombalbaye's role in the nation's journey to independence is undeniable. He was a key figure in the movement that wrestled Chad from the grip of French colonial rule, a feat that etched his name in the annals of Chadian history. However, like a coin with two sides, Tombalbaye's legacy is not solely defined by the struggle for independence. His tenure as president was marked by a relentless pursuit of power consolidation and the establishment of a centralized government. This, unfortunately, led to heightened tensions with various ethnic and regional groups within Chad. His favoritism towards his own ethnic group and his perceived lack of inclusivity further fueled discontent and instability, casting a shadow over his leadership. As Tombalbaye's rule became increasingly authoritarian, the nation felt the tightening grip of political restrictions and crackdowns on dissent. His downfall, culminating in his assassination in a military coup led by his former ally, General Felix Maloum, was a stark reflection of the internal strife and external pressures Chad was grappling with under his rule. Tombalbaye's presidency, thus, presents a period of mixed outcomes for Chad. His role in the nation's independence and early nation-building efforts stand as significant contributions. Yet, his authoritarian governance style and divisive policies also stirred internal tensions and conflicts, leaving a complex legacy behind. Different interpretations of Tombalbaye's leadership continue to emerge, painting a nuanced picture of his impact on Chad's political trajectory. His story is a testament to the complexities of nation-building, governance, and political stability in the aftermath of independence. François Tombalbaye's story serves as a poignant example of the trials and tribulations encountered by post-colonial African nations in their quest for stability and prosperity.